What are you still salty about? In elementary school, there was a pencil machine in the front lobby where you could get pencils for 25 cents. There were also special pencils that had stars on them. If you got one of these special pencils, you could take it into the office and get a prize. One day, I decided to get a pencil. I put in my quarter and out popped 2 pencils. And one of them was a special pencil. I went into the office and told the lady at the desk that the machine gave me 2 pencils and one of them was special. She proceeded to say that the machine shouldn't do that, took the special pencil, and didn't give me a prize. That was 19 years ago and I'm still pissed. To answer some of the more common questions. The prizes were stuff like the fancy erasers that didn't actually erase anything, fun-size candy bars, stuff like that. Think 5 to 10 tickets at Chuck E. Cheese's. I probably didn't go to school with you. This happened in Michigan. Apparently the pencil machines are a common thing. This happened in either 2nd or 3rd grade, so the time was probably closer to 20 to 21 years ago. Fuck, that makes me feel old. The main lesson I learned was to withhold irrelevant information and lie if I know the truth might negatively affect me. Good work, random office receptionist. The fact that I spelled mayonnaise correctly in my 4th grade class spelling bee, but the teacher claimed I didn't and dismissed me. I had won in the 3rd grade, and proceeded to win in the 5th and 6th grades as well. The unfair disqualification in 4th grade ruined what would have been a 4-year streak. I am sorry so many of you have also experienced spelling bee injustice. My sister got a brand new car for her 16th birthday. I got $20. That my 6th grade teacher refused to believe I had no idea the dude sitting behind me was copying my answers on the test. Coming second in a school trivia competition 21 years ago. I had the correct answers on 2 questions that would have sent us to the national champs and was vetoed by the other 3 shitheads on my team. That's a life lesson right there. Being right is almost never enough. You also have to be able to convince others that you're right. My mom decided that she didn't want Christmas presents one year and made sure to tell us, me and my 2 brothers. I suggested to her instead that we donate what we would have spent to charity in her name. She said she was fine with that if that's what we wanted to do. So that's what I did. I sent her a nice little card and the info for the charities I donated to, so she could see that her decision helped some good organizations out. Mom was pissed. Why didn't you just send me a gift card if you weren't gonna buy me anything? You ruined Christmas. Now, I love my mom. By that point we had a total of 1 really nasty fight, and that was several years before. She was fine growing up. She was fine most of my adulthood except for a suicide attempt that I got to call the ambulance for from the other side of the country. Long story. I'm accustomed to buying my mom decent, thoughtful presents. So when she accused me of ruining Christmas for her, I was distraught. I sent her a screen cap of the conversation we had and circled where she said she'd be fine with my decision to donate in her name. Her response? I don't remember that. I deleted those texts. I lost my shit, told her it's her own fault for raising me to do as I'm told. And next time just don't say shit if she's gonna change her mind and not tell us. And then we didn't speak for 3 months. This was 2.5 years ago and I have not gotten over it. On a 4th grade math test we had to make a shape that had only 4 sides, 1 set of parallel lines, and only 1 right angle. There were probably more requirements but I can't remember. I remember almost crying at my desk and spending 20 minutes on that one question while constantly telling my teacher that it wasn't possible but according to her it was. And the next day we went over the answer key, and the answer had 2 right angles. I was at a house party in college and we had to take off our shoes. Some bitch walked home in my leather knee-high boots and I've never gotten over it. For clarity, she left her dirty ass shoes behind for me to go home with. So thanks I guess you shoe thieving wrench. A friend told me that they only hang out with me when all of their other options run dry. No longer a friend I hope? Well, only if all other options run dry. I've mentioned this before, but when I was about 8 or 9, we had a big project in school which ended with us writing a story. I spent fucking hours on this thing. It was going to be the best book ever. It was only a matter of time before it was snapped up by some publisher and then it would be the talk of the Scholastic Book Fair, no doubt in my mind. It absolutely had to be in by the time school finished for Christmas, so my teacher could mark it over the break, so I stayed up until about 10 o'clock at night for about a week beforehand working on it, which, is the closest thing you get to an all-nighter when you're about 9. It was my magnum opus. I got back to school in January to find that a. She had lost it, b. She was accusing me of not handing it in, and c. Because mine was the only one she couldn't find, she decided to call me out in front of the class about it. I ended up locking myself in the toilet because I was crying so much. Worst still, it later transpired that when it turned up after all, she marked it as though it was handed in late, and the bitch still only gave me a middling grade. Fuck you, Mrs. Harding. When I had to get photos printed for a university project, so I went to a printer shop and they charged me £2 extra for a DVD with my photos on, even though I told them I didn't want the DVD, so I didn't get it, but they still charged me anyways and threw away my receipt before I could look at it. So with my new photos I went to hand in my project, only to be told that we were doing a peer review of them. No one in my group did the project and couldn't care less about it. So I wasted all that time and effort. Still so salty. University printer, yeah, that'll do it. When my old boss pulled out the 2020 calendar in late 2019 and asked everyone what days off they need so we can plan ahead and around. Everyone was spitting off dates. I didn't have any plans yet, so I didn't request anything until she specifically asked me if I wanted any dates off. I shrugged and asked for one day around my birthday because why not, and she started mocking me in front of everyone. It's just a 23rd birthday. Why would you need that off? But ooh, okay, KKK, obviously rolling her eyes, then started treating me like an idiot the rest of the day. 20 years ago I had 3 friends show up at my house, and when they left my wallet with $80 in it was missing. One of the guys felt bad and gave me $20 back. 3 years after that we are in the BK drive-thru and he whipped out my wallet. Still salty. His FB friend request has just been sitting there for like 2 years. A child in my child's class at school told their teacher that their mom was taking them out of school for the day of their birthday and so they would be absent on that day. The teacher admonished the child and told them that if they weren't present the following day that there would be hell to pay. The child was rightly upset and decided to go into school. They hadn't taken down their homework properly and so did 3 different pages of work. It was the wrong work. The teacher locked the child in the classroom over lunch on their birthday. I'm 35 now. When I was 14 or 15, my mom stormed into my room one evening and accused me of smashing a glass and getting rid of the evidence. It was one of these retro Coke glasses. I swore I didn't break any glass, and if I did, why would I hide such a small accident? But my mom didn't believe me. She was so mad and accused me of lying. She wouldn't even say why I was her prime suspect. Somehow it just had to be me. Anyway, I got into trouble for it even without any evidence. Sometime later it turned out no glass was actually smashed. My mom thought the glasses she bought came in 4s. But our neighbor bought the same set and there were actually 3 glasses in it. My mom acknowledged the fact but never apologized to me for how she screamed at me or how she accused me out of the blue. She just never mentioned it again. I'm still mad about it. Edit. Just to address a couple of things since the comment got a lot more karma than it deserves tbh. My mom's not a narcissist. She just has a petty streak sometimes and she doesn't like being wrong. She's a great mom. She had me very young and I don't think she was really mature enough to raise kids back then, but she did her best and I really love her. Also, I'm not angry at her anymore. I'm a grown-ass adult and most of the time I almost act like one. It's just one of those memories you can't help but feel a bit salty about whenever it pops into your head. I think most people can relate. Moral of the story. Acknowledge when you made a mistake to your kids. And people in general. When I was 10, I, the goody two-shoes nerd, was sat in the back of the bus, next to the class troublemaker, because we had assigned seats, thanks to him. He took apart someone's science fair project that was being kept back there, and threw a piece out the window. When someone tattled on him, he blamed it on me, and since the teacher couldn't prove one way or another, they just punished both of us, despite 15 kids coming to my defense. Fuck schools and their fairness in discipline. All I got was one study hall. Kids today are getting bullied relentlessly because they know that standing up for themselves means getting suspended. I was probably 5 years old visiting my mom at the hospital after she gave birth to my brother, and she was given food on a tray which she didn't want, so she gave it to me. I put the tray on the table, and as I was eating, the nurse takes the tray away from me and throws away the food. That may have my first true instance of anger in my life. I'm 27 now and I'm pissed as I'm writing this, haha. That my managers wouldn't let me have a weekend off for what would have essentially been my honeymoon because it's Small Business Saturday and you need to be here. I gave them over a month's notice and Small Business Saturday lasted all of an hour. Thank God. I don't work there anymore. Years ago, a guy the first worked with said he could guess the age of any girl in line. I pointed out the girl closest to us who was a tween and asked what's her age. He then called me a pedo for asking him to guess the age of a girl. Edit. I should note this job was at an amusement park where some people literally had the job of guessing ages, weights, heights. My brother eating the remainder of my birthday cake behind my back a couple of years ago. After the celebrations, I put what was left in the freezer to have some other time as a nice treat. Birthday cake being a novelty. The fucker demolished every last bit of it. This wasn't just a little slice of cake left over, at least half of the cake remained until he got his mitts on it. Was absolutely fuming. Came second in food tech competition. Made a lovely main course, then longs de chat biscuits with lemon posset for dessert. I made this dessert because the judges prior to this day told us don't make a cake for dessert. Guess what won first place? A fucking cake. In a 5th grade science test, the question was, are there any stars in the solar system? I answered, yes. Teacher marked it wrong. I went up afterwards and said, what about the sun? He said, he meant that all the other stars are not in our solar system and kept it marked wrong. Although I am harboring this for 50 years now, he was all around one of the best teachers I ever had and just passed away a week or so ago. But damn, that should have been marked right. When I was 21, I was deeply self-conscious about my baldness and I wore a hat everywhere. A friend of mine thought I was worried over nothing, so he set me up on a date with a wonderful woman. Everything went well at first, but when the hat came off, she shrieked and sprinted to the bathroom. And that was that. Sounds like you dodged a bullet, tbh. Kindergarten. Playing with a kid in the sandbox was a fairly drizzly day. We're making a castle and there's a puddle a few feet from us. He wants to dig a moat around the castle, and I say sure. So he just kinda jams his hand in the dirt and starts pulling, making way too huge of a channel, which he immediately realizes is going to just destroy our castle. So I say, quick, build a dam to stop the water. He freezes, stares at me with wide eyes and mouth agape before running off. I think this is strange, but okay, whatever. I saved the castle, so I go back to digging when the teacher runs up and grabs me and says to go to time out, to which I obviously protest and say no, WTF, I didn't do anything. She then immediately says she knows I said a bad word and to not try and lie, to which I am again confused and say I did not. After a few back and forths of her trying to pull me away by the arm and me rather violently resisting, it occurs to her to actually ask what happened. I explain the story. I still remember her face kinda dropping, realizing the other little shit thought. I said damn instead of damn and then immediately ratting on me. Tries to say well, maybe use a different word, to which I again vehemently protest against because no, that is the correct word for such a situation and that's just how it works and it's his fault for not knowing the word, etc., etc., until she finally gives in and explains to the kid that I did not swear, and that no one likes tattletales. I am in my 30s and on the other side of the country, and I still remember this as the very instance in which I gazed upon my fellow man and wept, for he is stupid. My mum ate a candy I saved for after school. It happened 20 years ago. The question in 2nd grade math. Joe read 2/5 of his book and Sue read 1/4 of her book. Who read more pages? It depends on how big their books are is absolutely the correct answer and shouldn't have been marked wrong. And you fucking know it, don't you, Mrs. K? Don't you? Edit. I'm sorry, Mrs. K. You don't really deserve all this Reddit hate. I missed out on recognition at my school's big academic assembly for arguably the most important academic results one gets in their schooling career, in my state in Australia, because the teacher I had sent my results to didn't pass on the news. It's been years and it still fills me with such exasperation. Some friends from work planned a get-together at a local chain restaurant for my birthday. One of my coworkers found out and decided it should also be to celebrate her birthday because it's the day before mine. Already annoyed, but whatever. The night of the dinner, a friend bought us both slices of cheesecake. They were presented with candles, and everyone sang happy birthday. At the end, she blew out her candle and then mine. And laughed about it. It was my candle. You were barely invited. I've never forgotten about it. The correct response there is to take the first bite of her cheesecake. I worked at McDonald's in high school. I trained maybe half a dozen other people who started there after I did and was never promoted to crew trainer for that sweet 15 cents an hour raise. I wouldn't really be salty about it if they hadn't promoted 2 people I trained to crew trainer, and one of them again to manager. My parents gave my mom's coworker, who is my age, 25F, a down payment for her first home a couple years ago because my mom acquired a liking to her. The same year I needed emergency dental surgery, which was $5,000. I was, still am, a single income living paycheck to paycheck and have not asked for money at all, not once. I have kept a steady job since 15. I moved out on my own at 19. They didn't help me out and I had nowhere to turn and ended up getting poor financial advice to put the cost of the surgery on a credit card. Took me 4 years to pay off. Still salty. Edit. Wow, thanks for the support everyone. I do have to clarify that I don't begrudge my parents for not giving me money. I understand the reason why they did it, to make sure I could be on my feet and make a big financial decision on my own. I just am salty at the way it played out when they could have handled the situation when I felt alone and out of control. What they do with their money regarding other people is not my business, it's not my money. I felt as if I had been given the cold shoulder. The first day of 8th grade, my best friend and friend group informed me that they would no longer be my friend. To this day, 20 years later, I still don't understand how or why things ended up that way. I can only guess because I was the shy nerd of the group and they were trying to fit in with the cool crowd. Regardless, it was a miserable experience that left me with quite a few trust issues. Edit. Wow, I never expected this to blow up like it did. Thank you for all the comments and my first awards. When my son was in Cub Scouts and it was our first time going to the Pinewood Derby. My son worked hard on his car and for a 7-year-old, it was decent. We show up and not a single kid built those cars, it was pretty much a dad competition. My son came in dead last and I was sad for him because his friends literally said that their dads all built their cars. So for the next 4 years my son picked the design and color scheme, and I built them while at work. We went on a 4-year win streak in the local, district and regional derbies. The look of anguish on those fathers' faces was worth it. Sorry, end of rant. They cancelled my name as Earl after telling the writers that it was definitely safe to end season 4 on a cliffhanger as they were going to make several more. Also still super salty over Flash Forward, Utopia getting cancelled. Seems like half of the shows I get invested in are killed halfway through. When I was in high school, I was occasionally allowed to drive my family's third car. It had a slow leak in one of the tires, so we were all supposed to check the pressure and put air in it if we needed to. I picked up a friend to go to a movie, and when we came out one tire was completely flat. It wasn't the one with the leak, so I put the spare on and drove home. I got absolute hell from my parents about it. How irresponsible I was to not check it, I'd have to pay for the repair. Why didn't I call roadside assistance, etc. Took it to get fixed, repeat the whole lecture as we're dropping it off. And the tech who did it called my mom and told her he'd found a nail in the tire and there was no way I could have seen it coming. She refused to apologize and I still had to pay for it. That's not even bad parenting, that's just bad personing. Had a friend in college borrow my truck when I flew home for a month 1,500 miles away. He agreed to the terms of, don't cross state lines, you only drive it to work and back, and if I find out you did otherwise it's going to be a big deal. I wasn't home a week and I got a call from our group of friends. He had taken the truck down to Connecticut, drove drunk, road raged at someone on the highway and love tapped the back end of a car. The kicker was he backed into his buddy's dad's brand new Lexus and caused $3,000 worth of damage. Needless to say I flew home the next day. When confronted about it he basically said, I don't have the money, it's your problem, So I have my mother, the insurance company, and the Lexus guy's dad all climbing down my throat to get me to fix the problem. The dad with the Lexus called me to say he was going to file a police report if I didn't pay. My mother was screaming about the insurance company dropping me. I went to school for the day, got back and he vanished. Cleaned out a bunch of shit from the apartment. Stole everybody's things. The one thing that still makes my blood boil is the fact that one of my good friends that lived with us will vehemently back up the shitbag anytime it's brought up. I understand that he didn't screw him over, but just denying it and saying that I need to let bygones be bygones is something I cannot do. Edit. Oh, my sweet Lord. This is genuinely the first thing I've ever posted that blew up this much. To clarify some stuff up, the reason I said my mom was pissed is because she had warned me. And told me, never let anyone drive your truck. For a day or two we didn't talk, but once all the stuff blew over she wasn't mad. I was only 19 at the time and she chalked it up to a life lesson learned. I called the insurance agency before I flew home, told them what had happened. Didn't fib. I called the worthless dirtbag that took my truck and told him that if my truck wasn't in front of my apartment I was going to report it as stolen. At this point I wish I would've. The phone call lasted about 15 minutes and consisted of me screaming at him. I've never been one to have any form of anger issues, but I genuinely don't remember anything past the first 3 minutes. Rage blackout is what it felt like. When I landed and got to my apartment my truck was there and we had the conversation that resulted in, "Yeah, I can't pay it, I'm broke." I had one of my friends there that picked me up from the airport. He held me back. The next day when I got back from school he had jumped the state line with all of his belonging from the apartment, along with some of my stuff. A couple days after that the insurance agency called and they asked for the full story again. I told them, and they asked for the guy's name and address. I gave them all the information I had and that was all I heard from them. Never got a bill, and my rates never went up. The guy whose dad owned the Lexus got a hold of me to tell me his dad was going to file a police report if I didn't pay up or if I didn't give him my insurance info. I told him the insurance company already knows and I said if that he's going to go after anyone, to go after the dirtbag. Gave him the guy's info, and never heard another thing about it from them. After that transpired the shitbag jumped state lines again. Not sure where he went but he did try and reach out to me and I promptly told him to fuck himself, and to never get a hold of me again. The friend that tried to back him up when I was pissed about the whole ordeal finally cut the worthless fucker out of his life when some of our other friends came forward about some of the stuff he did with my truck, drinking and hit and run, and he finally sided with me. I didn't talk to him for a while afterwards but we eventually did make up. In middle school, I had a test with some true, false questions. One said something about the Atlantic Ocean and the West Coast. I am in the U.S. There was some other stuff as well that was true about the Atlantic, but since the Atlantic is the East Coast, I marked it false. It was counted wrong and when I protested the teacher said something along the lines of, "Obviously I meant East Coast." It was only 1 point and made no difference to my grade in the end. But my 13-year-old usually quiet teacher's pet self was ready to fucking riot. I honestly wish she had. Edit. 13-year-old me finally feels a little repaid for the injustice. Thank you all for commiserating with me. In 4th grade English class, EU, I've used the word gross in a random sentence we had to write. The teacher argued that it isn't a real word. I said that it is. That I saw it a few times in video games and movies and she said that they aren't a reliable source. I said to her that I'm gonna show it in the dictionary, but she instead grabbed me by the arm and took me out of the classroom and locked the door. To this day I am still fuming about this. And then she had the nerve to be all chummy when I met her once in a supermarket. Gross. Edit. In both cases it was meant like disgusting and I know there are even more meanings behind the word. I wonder if she knows by now. It was the 3rd grade. I said a joke. Made the popular kid laugh really hard but only he heard it. Made me feel great. Then he repeated the joke louder and literally the entire class and the teacher laughed. 3rd grade me was so mad. Edit. A lot of people are asking what the joke was. I think the teacher was talking about how there was a bunch of Caesars, like Caesar Augustus, Julius Caesar. And I said, and Caesar salad. Okay, yeah, it was lame, but I was proud of myself for coming up with it. My delivery was perfect even. The popular kid was like, oh, and Caesar salad. And that's when the laughing commenced. It's funny to think that 3rd grade me was so distraught. When I was a freshman in college, my mom gave my car to my jailbird brother. Every time he got out, she'd scrape a bunch of stuff together for his fresh start, without ever running it by me. He showed up to my school, changed the battery for me, and then drove away in it. He didn't tell me his intentions beforehand, so it wasn't until then that I caught on. As he drove off, I called my mom and she just said, "I'll help you with a new one." He moved out of state with that car, wrecked it within weeks, and has since gone back to jail multiple times. Neither of them have given me a sincere apology to this day. 3 months ago I went on maternity leave. The woman hired to cover for me was being paid $3 more than I'm currently paid. She was going to be kept on as a full-time accounting assistant after I returned, but she couldn't keep up with my daily tasks and completely fucked up several databases that I had to correct when I returned to work the following month. When I asked for a raise, they offered me .50 after telling me how crucial I am to the structure of the company. Needless to say, I'm looking for a new job. My family had a PS1 when I was little and we had quite some games. Some of them are pretty expensive nowadays. Well, at some point the PS1 broke and my mom gave away all games. There is no point in keeping the games if you can't play them. Joke's on her, I bought a used PS1 about 2 years ago. Now I have to re-buy all games we had. When I was in high school, someone tagged up the school. They announced there would be a reward for anyone who rats anyone out. I get called in the office and find out I'm suspended for vandalization. I didn't do it and had no idea who. 4 days later I'm allowed to come back to school because they found who actually did it. I just got an apology.